Friends, here we are on the penultimate day of Arthurian April. It is April 29th, and today's topic is writing in the Arthurian story. Now, I do have some credentials. Somehow I'm missing the first book in my series in the new covers, but these are, so Queen of None, this is the original, my first publisher. The new ones look like this. It's just blue with a blonde lady. So I do know a thing or two about writing Arthuriana, and I know some people feel overwhelmed, a little hesitant about jumping into the deep end because there's a lot going on. But I was thinking about this earlier today, and I think I can probably make it easier for you if you think about some of these things before you just jump right in. First and most importantly, no matter what people say, there is no true canon of Arthurian literature. I hope, if anything that you've learned over the last 29 days, that this myth is the product of so many minds over so many centuries, adding, subtracting, editing, revising. Just because of one version of King Arthur doesn't mean that has to be the way that you do it. Secondly, this tradition is made to be retold, like it's in the DNA. Don't feel hesitant on your side to change things or to leave things out. You can't possibly put everything in there. We're talking about anywhere between 24 and 2,000 nights. So take a deep breath. You are writing in the oldest, or one of the oldest, fan fiction traditions in the English and French languages. So embrace that sense. Embrace whatever it is that you're bringing to the story. Third is to find your tent posts. Now, we use this term on my podcast with my wonderful colleagues, Cass Morris and Marshall Ryan Maresca, World Building for Masochists, as sort of these important points of your story, because when we're writing in other worlds, there's things we need to draw attention to that are the literal structure of the world that we have. When it comes to Arthuriana, I think it's very helpful, at least it has been for me, to find the sources that you want to use and set up as your tent posts. Are you going to do something that is historical? Are you looking at the 8th century or before? Are you doing this in a heightened Victorian view? Is this going to be really like a secondary world fantasy that's skinned over historical? That's what I did. And then use that as your guide moving forward. Personally, even though the aesthetic that I chose is very much from the Victorian eye, most of the language, most of the influences are from very early texts. I did let Lancelot and friends come in, but I didn't read a lot of Mallory. I didn't read a lot of folks that sort of built on the Holy Grail mythos. I really focused on Chrétien earlier, and that for me was a way that I could focus my research. Fourth is to follow what you enjoy. Again, very overwhelming to look at the entire opus of Arthurian writing and to think, I've got to include that and this person and that person, and I've got to make sure these fights happen. I need to make sure that there's all this blood and romance, blah, blah, blah. You know, the best writing I find is when you can feel the passion of the writer behind it. So if you don't like huge battle scenes, but you love the quieter moments in King Arthur, or you love the magic, or you love the conversation and the sort of courtly intrigue, go in that direction. If you love the murder and the weaponry and all of that stuff, by all means, go do that. If you want to combine the two, feel free. If you want to add your own knights, there's plenty to choose from. But if you want to add your own, if that's exciting to you, that's by no means unusual in this particular genre. Fifth, and this is some advice that we like to espouse as well in World Building for Masochists, which is really thinking about the magic level in your story. I do think that there's generally an expectation of magic or some magic systems that people believe in King Arthur. It would be very, very hard to write the story without any at all, or religion. I tried. My first draft of Queen of None did not have Christianity in it because I might have been working on some trauma of my own, but I did bring it back in, and I decided that it was going to be a very early sort of flavor of that. As a writer, though, I think a lot about magic. I think about magic and magic's limitations and the political ramifications of magic. I explore that a lot in my series with the role of Merlin and Vivian and Morgan as being both political and magical people, and then the variances in their own powers, where Merlin knows a lot of magic and sort of a lot of illusionary magic. He is a prophecy interpreter. So his power lies in people believing that his interpretation of prophecies are correct. So he doles out prophecies. But people like Vivian, her magic is in her blacksmithing. So she's able to imbue weapons with all kinds of power through her abilities. And then Morgan is able to pretty much learn any type of magic that there is out there, even blending them together through sort of a filtered goddess worship sort of approach. Number 6 is to remember that you always have a way out. There's always an answer. One of the really fun things for me about writing retellings, and I've done retellings of Arthuriana and retellings of Jane Austen, is that when I feel stuck, unlike writing stuff that maybe isn't based on anything, all I have to do is just open up my beloved Romance of Arthur or many of the other things, read a little bit, and very often it will just give me some direction to go in. And that's really fun. As a writer, you can't ask for much better than that because it's so hard to get out of the little knots that you put yourself in sometimes as a writer. And lastly, remember to have fun. This was entertainment. This is before film and even before like mass-produced books. These stories are meant to inspire and amuse and entertain people. And that is so much to me the heart of what Arthuriana is. It's about these characters being put in impossible situations, being incredibly human alongside all of their magic. This doesn't mean that every single retelling is going to be great. In fact, I've long had to say that just because a story isn't good or isn't for me still means the stories are being told. So sometimes we have to wade through lots of years of things not being great before they are great. But I guarantee you, if you have an Arthurian story to tell, somebody out there is waiting for that tale to be told. There's still so much, and we're still finding more extant stories, and we're far from done with these themes. There is something so timely, for me anyway, about Camelot and about Arthur's story that I don't anticipate will be running out of Arthurian stories for a very, very long time.